Good. All right, and don't leave yet. We actually have a giveaway from Rapid7, so if you give your business card over to the Rapid7 booth, we're going to do a drawing right now.
All right, guys, I'm Tyler with Rapid7, and we very rarely turn down pen tests. So if you need a pen test, let us know. But sometimes it's usually like a legal thing where we just can't work it out, and something like that happens. So I know you left that for me to answer, but
Yes.
and of course we have Metasploit as part of Rapid7. I think that was covered a bit, and Nexpo is our vulnerability management platform. So there's a lot that we're doing in the incident detection and response space as well. But we'll, Adam, you want to grab one? Looks like Michael Guido? Guido? And Guido Consulting? We'll pull it back up, we'll find him, and we'll grab one more just in case. Oh, and this is a $100 gift card to JC Holdway. The backup is Dallas Hannah. So that's who won. I don't think any of them are here. So we'll have 1, 2. Thank you.
All right, we got a few minutes before the next talk. Does anybody need a poster? I'm trying to get rid of posters. Yeah. All right, 1, 2. Anybody up there? I can't see up there. Yeah, sure. 3. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Is that Kenny? Yeah. Thanks, Kenny. There you go. Were you serious, Kenny? I will walk one up to you. If you save me one, I'll come up there and get it to you. All right, give us a few minutes and we'll set up for the next talk. Thanks.
Where do you want this? Do you want
I can hold on to it. Are you leaving now?
Actually, yeah, that's fine.
Which, is that the order?
Yeah, this was, so he was number 1.
Okay.
So,
All right. And if you're in Pres Pub and your name was drawn, find me, all right? And I've got the gift card. I'll be able to give it to you.
Let me give you the. So you can actually give us something. That'd get a bad rap.
Pull a third.
Okay.
Randomly pull a third too, just in case. Because I went. Pull pin. Okay. All right, I'm going to go over the radio and we'll see if we can find you guys.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to those guys. I must just drop it in. Could have written it. I know some people do that.
Thanks, you guys, for sponsoring.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Great to meet you guys. Hopefully we'll see you sometime. I'll be back for a week or so.
Cool.
Probably.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, anytime. How are we on? We got, oh yeah, you got like 8-10 minutes. You're good.
Good.
If you need to adjust the microphone, twist.
Probably
pull
grab
up.
it. I like
Cool.
to move around.
Good. If you move to about like right here, you're gonna go off camera for recording. Just so you know.
Gotcha.
A couple bags. I do not. If you put your, okay.
It looks half readable. Links up your back.
I'll be right back. Yep, I'm Roger.
Aaron was just looking for you.
Ah,
Ryan, how you doing?
nice to meet you. Is he still?
He's straight back.
Hi. You need me?
He just asked where you were when he walked back a second ago.
Do you need me? Okay.
I didn't know if you were still looking for him.
Are you guys good with walk-on music and everything? Yes, sir. Weaponizing Splunk. Oh, I know the Splunk.
You know the Splunk?
I know the Splunk. I deal with Splunk on a daily basis. I have a deployment of Splunk, 2 deployments of Splunk.
All right.
How many people are up there?
I can't see anybody upstairs, up top.
You get blinded. All right, this one's for up top because I can't see you. Does anybody want a mug? Up top? I got you. I'll come up there. I have to ask up top because we can't really see you from down here. So I'll come up there. I'll be up there in a minute. Did anybody leave a badge in Nama? Does anybody want a second badge? Yep, there you go. Oh, sorry. There we go.
That's me. That's me.
That's you? Oh, where'd mine go? Oh, mine's over here. What happens when you have everybody trained as a menu? TPG security, where's that out of?
Boston, actually, or Franklin.
Oh, Franklin, Tennessee? Oh, Mass, yeah. And you're work remote in
I'm in
Tennessee?
Charleston. Just drove up for this.
Cool. How long you been with them?
I'm not sure anything in Franklin, Tennessee is computer related. It's pretty small. Slice of town. I used to live in Jackson, so
Yeah.
yeah, quite familiar with the area a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of technology hubs in Tennessee.
Nashville's is growing.
It's growing.
Recently.
Yeah. Knoxville's got its little niches, but then like once you go to those 2 centers, like I don't think Memphis really has it.
Not that I know of. So you're based out in Knoxville then?
No, I was. So I lived here for about 10, 11 years. And then last year I moved over to Asheville. And I work remotely for Cisco.
Nice. Remote jobs are the best. I love working.
Yeah. You can be anywhere. It's freaking awesome.
Well, obviously I'm here, and then I travel almost every week. And sometimes it's busy, sometimes it's just that I'm a lot out of town.
Yeah.
As long as I got internet and my laptop, I'm good to go.
So you guys do a lot of remote engagements?
I would say usually
Yeah.
cut every now and again. I do the touchy feely stuff with the customer, and just I'll fly out and talk to them.
US based or international too?
We're international with like 1 and 2 customers, but mostly.
It's good to be able to travel like that. Ready to go? Play walk-on music for it. Aaron, you ready? Good? All right. All right, so next up on the agenda, we've got Ryan, who's going to talk about how to weaponize Splunk.
All right, I did not pick the music, but that works. All right, as you said, my name is Ryan. So I'm the Director of Security Engineering at TBG Security. We're based out of Boston. We specialize in offensive security engagements. Prior Navy vet and basically professional hacker now. And all my contact information will be at the end as well, in case anybody wants to find me. So where did this talk come from? So last year, myself, my team and myself were on an engagement for a company, I guess I'll say. And we got internal access to the network, and we started doing recon and enumeration, and we found a Splunk box. And as soon as we navigated to the Splunk box, we saw that it automatically logged us in with admin rights. So, thanks, guys. This is awesome. But what can I do with that, really? So I can look at data. I can find, logs and stuff that's going in there, and they had a lot of information, so we were able to enumerate the company and figure out what was going on, what boxes did what's the DC, what's the Exchange server, what's what. And then we decided, hey, let's build an app. So we built an app, and the app basically gave us a reverse shell on the box. But now I want some more access, so let's build another app. So then we built another app that we deployed out to all the boxes inside the network that had universal forwarders installed, which in this engagement was almost every box in the network. So I went from a pen test that usually takes 2 weeks to about an hour, maybe 2. And we had domain access, domain admin access, and basically everything we wanted. So it's pretty cool. And this is really not just a Splunk talk. Well, it is for this talk, but the concepts that I'm talking about here really could be applied to any software that we're talking about that has this level of access. McAfee EPO has this kind of access. It allows code execution on boxes. This can be applied to a lot of different things, not just Splunk. Anyways, so what I'm going to be here for, I'm going to give a brief introduction about what Splunk is. Hopefully everybody here knows what Splunk is. If you don't, I'm sorry, but it'll just be brief. Then I'm going to talk about some basic common misconfigurations that I always see and that everyone always sees, and usually it's going to be the same things you see against all the other software, not just Splunk. And then I'll actually get into the meat, so weaponizing Splunk. There's going to be 3 attack surfaces that I'm going to talk about. We're going to be talking about attacking the server itself, how we can actually attack the organization, move laterally, and then the final subject is not really talking about Splunk inside a customer environment, but more Splunk that you're going to use yourself, that you would have on your attacking machine or in some sort of attacker fashion, and you can correlate and aggregate all that data together. And then finally, after I tell you how to break everything, I'm going to talk about some basic ways how to fix those things. Oh, and at any time, if anybody has any questions, I can't see a lot of stuff with this bright light, but raise your hand or start asking a question. I don't mind being stopped at any point. Make sure that I get, all the topics covered. So what is Splunk? It's a log aggregation tool. All these devices that you have on your network, your Windows boxes, your Linux boxes, your appliances, everything, they all generate logs. And right now, as a security incident response guy, you have to go look at all those logs. And then I have to look at all those logs, and I have to correlate the logs and say, hey, what happened at this time, during this incident, yada, 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 this, that, and the other. Splunk allows you to bring all that together and kind of search it in one single location, which is really nice. But it also allows you to execute code. So that you can expand it with, as I said, Splunk applications. These applications can be written in Python, Perl, Bash, PowerShell, just about any scripting language that you want. Normally, these applications are usually used to enhance your data or parse your data that you have coming in. But as I said, they can be used to execute code. A couple other concepts that we need to talk about are the universal forwarders. So all these other boxes that you have in your network, your Windows hosts, your Linux hosts, those all need to have either syslog or you have to have a universal forwarder installed on them so that you can ingest the logs that are coming in and send them over to your Splunk box so that you can actually search them. These universal forwarders do allow code execution as well, which really is the center of this talk. The universal forwarders are managed by what Splunk calls a deployment server. All the deployment server does is basically aggregate, and it allows you to configure and say, hey, send this app to these computers. And these computers can be determined by operating system or host name. Yep, that's about it for that. And here's kind of what the deployment server looks like. When you first log in and click on the deployment server, you'll be presented with all the clients. They're separated into what's called server classes. So this is where you would separate things out by all my Windows boxes, all my Linux boxes. Here's all my Exchange servers, my domain controllers, going forward, anything that you need. And as I said, these are all determined by operating system or the host name. And here's where I decide what applications I want to install to which server classes. Everybody cool there? Cool. So the misconfigurations that we see. Obviously, default password is the biggest thing that I run into. Admin changed me as the default password for Splunk. As of Splunk 6.5, it does force that password to be changed upon install, which is really nice. But 9 times out of 10, you do see password reuse. So whoever installed your Splunk server is probably using the same password that they're using to log into their same Windows box. The older versions of Splunk, as I said during our engagement last year, and I think that was 4.5, so it was quite a few versions ago. But the older versions did auto log you in as admin, which is really cool. So if you don't install SSL, which is a 1 or 2 click button, one is to check the box and one is hit save. You should enable SSL. Otherwise, I can run man-in-the-middle attacks, and obviously, then your password really doesn't do you any good. And then finally, running Splunk as a higher level privileged. And when I talk about Splunk, I'm not just talking about the application itself, but also those universal forwarders that I was just talking about. So a lot of times I'll see Splunk installed correctly, installed as a different non-privileged user, but all those universal forwarders, because they have to touch so many logs and so many different logs for different applications, 9 times out of 10, those either running as root or running as system, because no one wants to configure the permissions correctly so that universal forwarder can read all those different logs, which is really nice for us. So, weaponizing Splunk. As I said, there's 3 attack surfaces. First of all, attacking the server. What can we do when we actually log into the Splunk server itself? We can review the logs, we can enumerate information. We also, if Splunk is installed incorrectly and running as a higher level user, we have read access on every file on that operating system. Finally, we can talk about the malicious apps that we can install that actually allows us code execution on the box. When we want to actually talk about attacking the organization, we can laterally move to all these boxes that have universal forwarders. Now, there's usually 2 different configurations that you run into when you're on a pen test. People will either have universal forwarders installed on every box in the organization, or they're only going to have them installed on boxes they want to see logs from, which 9 times out of 10 is the boxes that I also want to attack, because those are the high-level boxes that everyone wants to see the logs from in case somebody attacks you. So it's kind of nice. That deployment server is going to come into handy for us in that section. And then, as I said, finally, we're going to talk about attacking the data. And that's, if I install Splunk on my Kali box, and I run Nmap, and then I start ingesting Nmap, and I start ingesting Responder, and I start ingesting all these other logs that I have, it gives me up-to-date information in real time and kind of decreases that dwell time from running a scan, reviewing the logs, and attacking a box. So now I go from a 20-minute thing to a 2-minute thing. So it's kind of nice. So when I first log into a box, let's start looking at the logs. Splunk pulls in everything, custom web applications, the logs that I have coming in. I mean, everything's here. What can I start looking at? Here's some things that I would start doing. So let's go to the search and reporting app. Let's type in username. I now have a full list of updated usernames that are actively being used during my pen test. Type in password. If it's a development environment, I see this all the time in development environments. The guys are just going to pull in every log that they have, which sometimes includes passwords. If you start looking at things like, let's look at window event codes for logins and logouts, I can now start enumerating, does this company run a 24-hour shop, or are they 9 to 5? What hours do they work? So now I can kind of tweak my engagement based on those operating hours. And then, as I said earlier, you can identify which systems are doing what thing in the environment. Where are my domain controllers? What are the host names? What are the IPs? Where are all these boxes at? The applications that are being used, and then just understanding what's going on. So if the system administrator has alerts set up or reports set up to look for certain things, I now know either disable those alerts or just don't do those things. So I mean, you know, if you have admin rights in this box, there's little that they can do to stop you. Here's just basic common things that I look for, you know, Etsy shadow, Etsy password. Let's enumerate the box that we're on. So let me show you this. Just a basic walkthrough. So as soon as you log in, hit add data. Let's go to monitor. We'll figure out what we're going to look for. So first off, we're going to look at Etsy shadow. And we're going to hit next. As soon as we hit next, we're now looking at the Etsy shadow. So I can grab these hashes, throw them on a password cracker, and now I have an account, hopefully. And as long as I don't keep hitting next, none of this information is ever logged, ever indexed, and no one ever knows that I was ever here. So this is really nice for if Splunk is misconfigured and running as a higher level user. So, malicious applications. As I said, Splunk can be expanded with the applications. You can run Python code, you can run, you know, whatever operating system is actually running on the box. What's nice with Splunk is it is packaged with a Python interpreter. So no matter what operating system this thing is installed on, I can always at least run Python. So, you know, when I built my malicious app, I built it with Python. It does do bind, it does do reverse, it does do basic shells, it does do interpreter shells. And as I said, this is all proof of concept. It's highly detectable. I'm not trying to hide it. It's basically as a proof of concept for you guys to play with or to use on a pen test engagement where I really don't care if I'm caught or not. Well, play. There we go. So initially, we're going to set up a handler. Well, we're going to start Metasploit and then set up a handler, but yeah. Are there any questions right now? All right. So as I said, everything that I have packaged in the app is all Python based. So we're going to use a Python handler for that, or a payload. All right, so now we have a handler set up. We're going to go back into Splunk. If I could type, there we go. Let's go back into Splunk now. Let's actually install our application. So we're either going to log in, or if we have somebody that is running an old version, we're just going to navigate to the page and auto log in. We're going to install the app from a file because we have it downloaded already. And all the source code's on GitHub, and the links will be at the end. So we're going to upload that. It doesn't require a reboot, which is really nice. Now in 6.5, it does require this one permission change, and I can't figure out for the life of me of what configuration file this comes from, which would prevent this, but change this one permission. And now what this does is actually install some commands that I can run from the search and reporting app, which I'll do here. And I can specify what type of shell I want: reverse, bind, interpreter, basic, and then where I need to communicate to if I am doing reverse. So we'll do a reverse interpreter shell, we'll give it our IP and the port that we want to communicate over, and we're going to hit enter. The nice thing with the code that I've packaged with it is it does fork itself off, vice using all the resources from Splunk, which would, you know, alert some administrator if they were watching. So it does fork itself off, and we do get our session back here in interpreter. So that's really nice. Oh, crap. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Everybody wants to download it. Everybody wants to install it. Well, right now you can grab it from GitHub, as I said. And, you know, you used to be able to grab it right from Splunk base. I submitted it. I got approved. It was really cool. It was just a basic interpreter shell. It was awesome. They approved it. I thought it was really awesome. And about 57 minutes later, I got another email that said that I was disapproved. So you do have to download it from GitHub and install that way. Sadly, that sucks. But it would have made it a lot easier. Instead of installing from file, you could install right from Splunk base. hey, whatever. All right, so we have a shell in the box. We can exploit the box that way. What else can we do with Splunk? So the entire Splunk application is built off, or has an API built into it. The whole front end that you actually navigate and use with the web UI is all based on the Splunk API. All of the applications that are installed, including our own, has configuration files. So if, for instance, one of these configuration files, such as a Windows application, would ask you for a username and password. So you have to enter this username and password, and these are all stored in files found on the file system. Now, Splunk does do this correctly. They do take your password. They do encrypt it. They do salt it. The salt is unique for every Splunk deployment, which is really nice. And if you go in there and you look, this is what you would see in a configuration file on a basic Splunk installation. Can't really read it. Can't really get anything out of it. But if I use the API and about 14 lines of Python, I do get a clear text password, as you see down here. So this application actually will loop through every app installed on the Splunk implementation and pull out every configuration that it has for it. So, for instance, if there is a Windows application, I would get the username and a password for a domain user account. Now, that doesn't always mean that I get a domain admin, but at least I have, some sort of domain account, and I can escalate privileges from there. No, this is actually clear text password right here. No, it's just a super secure password that I was using at the time. I mean, I was using numbers and letters. No one's ever going to crack that. All right, so we've attacked the box. We've gotten clear text credentials. We've installed an app. We have code execution. We've pretty much owned the Splunk box itself. Let's figure out where we can go from here. So as I said before, Splunk has universal forwarders, and they have the deployment server that pushes all those apps out. So again, I built 2 more apps, one for Windows, one for Linux. And Splunk calls these technology add-ons, and it's just a Splunk term. It really doesn't mean anything. You could push out whatever you wanted. So the Windows app is just a bat file that runs PowerShell. You do have to generate your own PowerShell code and put it into the application to install it. So hopefully you do have command execution on the box. And you'll see that in the video in a second. The Linux one, you will have to make a configuration change for the IP address. But basically, it's the same shell that you're running for the initial app that we installed. And all this is packaged, as I said, in the initial application. So again, we're going to start at Metasploit. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to start with generating the PowerShell code. So I use the Trusted Sec Unicorn project. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. But basically, it generates a PowerShell payload for Metasploit. I'm using it in this instance for a reverse Metasploit shell. So that's what it kind of would look like. You could go to any Windows box you wanted, run this from a command line. It'll get your reverse shell back. We're just going to stick it inside of our application. So this shell that we're looking at is on the actual Splunk server. We're going to update the application that we have and make sure that they can be deployed out. So let's copy out the Windows and the Linux app, and let's move them to the deployment section of Splunk. And now let's edit the Windows app to inject that PowerShell code that we just generated. All right, so our Windows app is set up. We're going to edit our Linux app and just change the IP addresses to make sure that they match what our attacking box is. All right, so we have our Windows app set up, we have our Linux app set up. Now we just got to push them out to all of our clients. Well, I guess we need handlers first, but then they need to get pushed out to the clients. Now, as I said, I'm using basic Metasploit code here. Any of these payloads can be swapped out with custom stuff that you guys are using for your pen test or your red teams if you want to be a lot sneakier. This is just basic proof of concept stuff so I can show off the capabilities of it. So we got our Windows handler set up. Let's do a Linux handler here. All right, now we can go back to Splunk. Come on, there we go. So we'll log in with those credentials or auto log in, hopefully, one or the other. We'll look at our Splunk server, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna edit these and assign them to the actual classes that we have set up. So I already have a class set up for Linux, for all our Linux payloads, and then we'll set up the same one for Windows. And what this basically says is any Windows box on the network, deploy out this application and execute. The fun part with these configurations is I could say, hey, run this payload every 2 hours. So now if somebody catches me, kills my payload, well, in 2 more hours, I'm gonna get another shell back. Or you could run it even more or even less. Whatever time you really want, you can configure that with the application that's deployed out. So we got our first one back, and the second one takes a second. Come on. Go back over there. It's coming. There it is. And there's a second payload. So now, I mean, in this instance, this is a demo server. This is just 2 boxes I had out there. But if you had 60 boxes in the network or 100, all these shells would be just coming back and raining in. So now you can go from here, run Mimikatz, dump passwords, whatever you needed to do from there. I mean, you now have access to every box on the network. All right, so we've attacked the server, we've attacked the rest of the organization. What else can we do with Splunk? So as I said before, install Splunk on your Kali box. Start looking at ways that you can ingest all those logs that you have. Nmap runs, it has XML output. Splunk reads XML. Pull in all those logs. Every other tool you run has some sort of output or some sort of regex that you can build to read in those logs. For instance, right here, I was running a Wi-Fi pineapple. So in real time, I can deploy a Wi-Fi pineapple out. I can get all the SSIDs, all the clients that I've already attached to my network. I have pretty charts that I can insert into my report to make all my customers happy. And this kind of decreases that dwell time, as I said, from looking at the web interface and clicking around and refreshing. All that stuff comes back in real time right here. This is just one thing that we've built. And we have another one for Responder, which is a man-in-the-middle tool that hopefully you guys have used because it's awesome. In real time, again, I would have all the responder logs coming back. So I know how many credentials I captured, how many users. I had to blur some of these out because this was actually a real engagement I was on. How many usernames I have, what usernames I have, what types of credentials I'm looking at. And then down at the bottom here would actually be the usernames and password, basically, that you could dump out and hand over to Hashcat. Some of the things that I want to actually expand on with this, because this is all still in development, is I want to start adding some of the context menus, so you can right-click on some dashboards, actually get you more data, or you can actually execute actions. So I want to start adding context menus to this application that would allow me from here to just send those credentials right to our password cracking box, or start executing XYZ attack or a DAuth attack for the Wi-Fi pineapple, all from this one interface. So again, it would decrease that dwell time. All right, so mitigating actions. Obviously, update and patch your software, enable SSL, change your passwords, don't run it as root. I mean, that's all the same stuff that you hear every single time. Splunk has a really cool documentation. It's about 30 or 40 pages long, really good at documentation, and I don't see a lot of people follow it. Every now and again, actually, I gave this talk a couple weeks ago at Nashville. I had a really smart guy there. Apparently he's followed this documentation to a T, but I don't run into that very often. So, you know, look at the documentation, follow that. It's right in front of you. And so that's really all I got. That's my contact information. As I said, I work with TBG. We are hiring. If anybody wants to talk to me about that afterwards, I'll be at the bar with an open tab. We can talk about it there. Or if you just want us to talk about Splunk. Thanks, guys. Oh, what's up? So the question was, has this technique been caught by the client? In the engagements I've run, no. But this isn't a new technique. People have talked about it before. They just haven't talked about it in all the same contexts that I have. So I have run into people that have run this before. But yeah, no one's really caught it on the engagements I've been on. And you know, one thing to think about is, again, if we are admin on the Splunk box, I could literally just erase the logs that are being generated for anything that I'm running in the environment. Anything else? I can't see upstairs, so if anybody's asking, just go ahead and ask.
Which was that Mr. Gus for 7521?
Yes. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.